Bangalore, India. I'm a chartered accountant and CEO of a company that's into training for global management courses. So if you look at me, you would never be able to guess that leprosy has been a very major part of my life for several years, and it still is in a different way. Well, I was very young. I was just out of my college, and I was doing my chartered accountancy course, and I just got leprosy. And my experience of the disease, the first instance was that I felt as if I have done this to my family. There was a sense of guilt, and of course a lot of fear. Predominant feeling definitely was of fear. And I had these images about leprosy, which came from, God knows, probably watching people on the road begging with the fingers all, mutilated, I would say. And so my imagination about the disease was that very soon I'm going to get there. I'm going to start losing my fingers and I'm going to turn a little grotesque. That was my experience, my image. And then, so I lived in this fear, and I did know it's a germ that attacks you.
Did you know it was curable?
I knew it was curable, but I just did not know whether everybody would be cured. So I would have imagined then, and I was imagining that probably I would just be swarmed by these germs or this bacteria, and my face would change, my limbs would look different, and so it was quite scary. I mean, I was scared of myself. That was my feeling. And my family was very supportive. My sister used to eat from my plate just to express her solidarity, and that was amazing. It's so important to be able to speak your feelings, but just because I had done this to them, and just because nobody spoke about it, it was a taboo thing that we didn't speak, but we did everything as a family. Like, I was going through meeting the doctors, getting my medicines, and also what happened was I really didn't want to meet the people from my life, except that I was living with my family. And very soon I orchestrated my moving from Coimbatore, where I lived then, to a city called Bangalore, where I live now. And here it was good. I had a lot of anonymity. I don't know whether I ran away, but I wanted to be in a different city, and I felt good that nobody knew me here. So so I made new friends, and but I had the secret inside me. I worried about if I had met you then, I would have worried that would you accept me if you came to know that I have this disease,
right.
Or rather I had this disease. And I kept going to one doctor after the other, and the doctors I went by from the mainstream hospitals, and I've experienced that they didn't have much knowledge about how to treat me. So I kept getting, some doctors said stop your medication, some said continue. And I used to have this, I had to go to the medical store to buy medicines. So I had this sense of shame. I had this prescription in my hand, and I would wait for the medical store to get emptied, and then quickly go. And then I used to ask for the medicines, and I used to wonder, what is this man giving at the counter? What is he going to think about me? One of the fear that I would have is that one day I would get resistant, because I had this half knowledge. And when I'm resistant to this treatment, it would be a huge thing, and I would suddenly become unrecognizably horrible. That was the image, right? So, I mean, I'm just looking at the whole thing like there's so much of superstition surrounding the disease, and people are dealing with that. And life went on, and my first marriage was based on someone accepting me, although he knew, I had told him that I had this disease. I don't even know whether my family would remember, because so many years have passed, but my sister and my mother did tell me that we may not be able to find a groom for you on the usual method of Indian marriages. So I have to find my own person, and that was quite devastating for a young girl. Because that's exactly opposite of what happens in Indian homes. You don't find your own person.
Exactly.
Family finds a person for you. So it did. So I got a lot of gratitude for the person who knew. Yes, and then the marriage ended, and then I justified for him, saying that, wow, I mean, what else could he do? Right? And so this struggle continued, and a lot of times I was afraid of my own self. And my right hand has a bit of clawing, so sometimes I used to bleed from the hand, because I could have struck my hand at some object, and then I would not have known that it is hurt. And when I would look at it, I would feel horrified. That was a feeling. being horrified by yourself is quite a horrible experience for a young person to have.
Absolutely.
And I went on, I moved on, I began to work in companies, and then subsequently I married again. And the thing about all these intervening years was that that at last I came to a place when I realized that the struggle that I had was for nothing at all, right? And the emptiness, the meaninglessness of the whole struggle is something which really strikes me today. And I think that's why it's important for me to speak about it. That I was dealing with not the disease, but the superstition surrounding the disease. And sometimes you hear, like my dad did feel I'm unfortunate. And today I feel I'm fortunate because I can talk. And also I understand that I come from a background where I'm privileged because I come from an educated background. My father was an army officer. I had a good education. But then I also think of all the people who generally suffer from leprosy are from a very poor background.
Right.
And somehow it seems as if one doesn't, they are not really cared for, or that they don't have, obviously they have no voice in the society. And I think that is the unfair part. And, for me, a sense of justice, rendering justice would be when every one of them is really taken care of. When I came to Bangalore and then I began to make new friends, and I always used to wonder whether if they come to know about what I've gone through, how would they respond or react to me. But much later, I began to form these wonderful new friends. And these are friends to whom I could talk about my life. And so I share about, I've shared about my disease. And, there's so much of love and understanding between us. And there's a sense of, acceptance of what I must have gone through, which is very important for a person who's gone through this kind of experiences. But I still have not reached out to my past, in the sense, the friends I grew up with in school, and I haven't shared my story with them. Probably that's because I did, transition from one city to the other, and I that time did not want to go back and tell about my story because I was still dealing with the weight and the burden of the disease, and which comes from, again, the stigma, the story, the superstition, everything surrounding it. So the thing about leprosy is that, if you look at diseases like tuberculosis and HIV, there are many famous personalities around the world who have suffered from the diseases. But for leprosy, you don't have really people talking about the disease. And there must be people. There must be people like me, for example, educated people who would have suffered. But generally, it's shrouded in a kind of a mystery, cloaked in mystery. And that's why it's very important that we speak, and more people come out and speak about how they could deal with the disease. And in my case, I was very young when I went through the whole thing, and the burden of the disease was huge because of that. Because a very young person with all those hopes of living a great life, suddenly going through an experience of being shattered because this disease is going to change her life forever. And then I had to then revert back and then learn to live my life in a fruitful way. The very important thing I find is that I'm not having any significance attached to the disease. Like my students, I tell them, they're all from big companies. To name the big company, I have students from all the top companies. And I tell them, in the course of my interaction with them, I have told them that, look, I have suffered from leprosy and it happened many years ago, and I had this fear about the disease, and it's curable. I've been cured, and I'm now working for this cause. So, I find they are so understanding, and they're so happy that they could hear from me about the fact that I went through this and I'm okay now. People who have been affected by leprosy end up in the colonies, and I don't know whether anybody from an affluent family also was forced to go to the colonies. It's quite likely, it's possible. One of my concerns is that the children who grew up in colonies, they look around houses, and everybody in the family around them has had leprosy, and they go to study in normal schools. Maybe they take a mode of transport. So the concern is that what are the experiences for them about themselves? And once we cut them off from the mainstream society, people are not going to see anyone with leprosy around them, and not even know that there are people who suffer from the disease and suffer from being separated or being, say, ostracized. So one challenge could be that, if there were no leprosy colonies, then you would have seen integration, but then people may be then forced to accept the people. But really, this is a big question that, what do you do with people who have had the disease but have not had the courage or the access to live in normal societies like rest of us. So this is an issue which we need to really be concerned about. When you see someone on the road who is begging, and visible signs of leprosy is there, I have thought a lot about these people, and I have thought that at this stage in their life it may be very difficult to make them a useful member of society, the economic world, rehabilitate them, because they have made a choice of actually their livelihood of begging. You really can't do much. That's my thought. But you know what? We can prevent the next person from becoming a beggar. So the message I have for the World Leprosy Day is that from now onwards, any person who is suffering from leprosy does not have to be forced to take a choice of vocation, but rather has equal opportunity to live a life of dignity and is socially and economically living a life of being useful for himself and for looking after himself. And it's our responsibility to ensure that that happens.